Hello and welcome to another episode of Heat Check. I am John Devine. With me is Anthony Chang. And we are about to hit the Summer League in Vegas. Anthony's out there, so he didn't put any bets down for me, but that's okay. It's kind of probably illegal.
It's early still. Maybe later.
That's true.
Just got here.
So we will go into the fact that the Heat made, by their standards, a big trade. We always say you can't get something for nothing, but I think that has been proven wrong. And we're also going to talk about the Heat Summer League in Vegas, where the Heat is defending league champions. Ooh, can't say that often, so we may as well enjoy it while we can. Let's get right into it. Norman Powell for Kyle Anderson and Kevin Love. Let's go right into it. First off, on the court.
Yeah.
What can you tell us about Norman Powell that we haven't already heard?
I mean, he's an efficient scorer. One of the most efficient scorers in the NBA. He can play on the ball, off the ball, very versatile, good three-point shooter, good mid-range shooter, good at the rim, draws free throws, three-level scorer. He's going to help the Heat's offense. There's no doubt. We've talked ad nauseum about how bad the Heat's offense has been the last few years. Bottom 10 offensive rating the last 3 years. They needed a scoring punch, right? And to get a guy like Norman Powell, who probably should have been an all-star last season. He was one of the snubs. Average a career high 21.8 points a game, I think, last season. On really good efficiency, 48.4% from the field for a guard, really good. 41.8% from three, obviously, really good. He's just a bucket getter. And this team needed that. They need that. So he's going to help on the offensive end. There's no doubt. You know, obviously it stinks to kind of see Kevin Love go, right? He had really established himself as kind of like the new UD of the team, if there could be one, like just the leader. Didn't play much, last season, but just the emotional, spiritual leader of this team. Everybody respected him in the locker room. Use a different approach than Udonis Haslem, more humor. We saw the memes and Instagram posts during the Jimmy Butler saga that he did, but he really brought the locker room together, kind of a connector. So this team is going to miss him, but like you said, Kyle Anderson and Kevin Love, they probably were not going to be in the rotation next season. And if they were, it was going to be fringe. Maybe, Kyle Anderson in spots get some minutes, but they weren't going to play consistent minutes. Norman Powell is a guy that might start. If he doesn't start, definitely going to be the sixth man. And immediately one of the top three scorers on the roster. So really, really good trade for the Heat. Does it make them the favorite in the East? No. But it definitely, Judy, we can get into this a little later, but how many teams at this point would you say are definitively better than the Heat at this point in the East? Just consider all the injuries and all the movement. Damian Lillard and Jason Tatum and Tyrese Halliburton and Miles Turner leaving Indiana. With Norman Powell, you have a starting lineup of Norman Powell, Tyler Hero, Andrew Wiggins, Bam Adebayo, and Khalil Ware. It's a pretty good starting five in this Eastern Conference. So definitely lifts them, I think, into that top six range where maybe they can avoid the play-in after all this season.
And that would be an improvement from the past couple of years. Looking at it from the X's and O's standpoint, does it appear to you that Norman Powell makes up for some of that shooting from the loss of Duncan Robinson? And I did see one quote, I think it was either you or Barry, talking about the offense and that they like to do a lot of dribble handoffs and they like to do a lot of weave. But you finally have someone who goes north-south. And that kind of changes the dynamic of the offense.
It does. He's different than Duncan Robinson, right? I mean, he's a really good three-point shooter like Duncan, but Duncan was an off-the-ball guy, pin down dribble handoffs, off of screens, just floor spacer. Norman Powell is a guy that, he's a really good spot-up shooter, but you could put the ball in his hands and just say, go get a basket, right? Like last year with the Clippers, when Kawhi was hurt, he was the number two option with James Harden. He's a guy that's, like Tyler Hero, he can get points. And that's going to help Tyler a lot because we saw in the playoffs the last few years without Jimmy when Jimmy was hurt 2 years ago. And then last year when Jimmy was not on the team and teams really keyed on Tyler, Tyler struggled, right? Now if you're keying on Tyler, you have a guy like Norman Powell who can get points himself. So it's going to help Tyler. It's going to help Bam. It's definitely going to help this offense. Again, is this now a top 10 offense? Probably not. But I don't think they probably shouldn't be a bottom 10 offense again for the fourth straight year. They probably should be better than that. So if Norman Powell can stay healthy, that's a question mark, right? I don't think he's played more than 60 games in a while in the season. He's 32. If he can stay healthy, he's going to help this team a lot. So, yeah, I think when you talk about Duncan Robinson filling his shooting, that's more Simone Fontecchio. Again, will he be a consistent part of the rotation? Heck, Duncan Robinson was a consistent part of the rotation sometimes, right? So Fontecchio is a guy that has a similar skill set to Duncan. And if he plays, when he plays, he'll probably be used in a lot of the same actions, same sets to get him open and kind of make him a threat from the three-point line.
You keep taking my points before I get there, and I have
Sorry.
to think of new ones. It's okay. But here's my next question.
Yeah.
What does the Heat starting lineup look like with Norman Powell and without Norman Powell? Because there's a key point I want to bring up in a second.
Yeah.
And I think it relates to Davion Mitchell. Go ahead.
Yeah, I feel like so one disclaimer here. This is assuming Andrew Wiggins is still on the roster, right? At the start of the season. And there's been some discussions with other teams involving Andrew Wiggins, right? And he has another year in his contract. Maybe he would want to move that money. I know that they've explored trades for Andrew Wiggins. Nothing obviously has happened yet. If Andrew Wiggins is still on the roster, without Norm Powell, obviously the easy answer is the starting lineup pretty much they closed the season with, right? Davion Mitchell, Tyler Hero, Wiggins, Kel'el Ware, and Bam. If Norm Powell starts, that's where it gets tricky. I'm assuming then Davion Mitchell will move to the bench, and then you start Tyler Hero, Norm Powell, Andrew Wiggins, Bam Adebayo, and Kel'el. But then you lose some defense, right? Norm Powell isn't the best defender. He has the physical traits. He has a really long wingspan, has the quickness and athleticism, right? That he should theoretically be a good defender, but that's not his specialty. He's obviously not as good as Davion on defense. So you're going to lose that a little bit. And then you move Tyler back on the ball a little more where he's probably better utilized off the ball. So I think in a vacuum, yeah, Norm Powell is one of the top 5 players in the roster. He should start. He said yesterday on the conference call with reporters that he sees himself as a starter. But his fit with this team, if Wiggins is here, it might make sense for him to be the 6th man. It really might make sense for him to be the 6th man and still play 30-plus minutes, but that way you get that defense start the game with Davion and you play play Tyler a little more off the ball. But again, if Wiggins is out, then all of a sudden, do you start Mitchell, Hero, and Norm Powell, or is that too small? But that could be a way of getting all those 3 in if Wiggins is traded. So there's still a lot of moving pieces at play, but yeah, it's not a clean-cut answer, really.
And you don't know what you get back for Wiggins either.
Sure.
So the question is, first off, let's start with Norm Powell and how this fits. You traded technically 2 for 1, so you have one more roster spot. Well, let's talk about the salary cap. How's the salary cap look now?
We're going through my my little calculations here that I have written. They're hard capped the first apron right now because they took in more money in that trade than they sent out. So that hard caps them at the first apron.
All right, translate for our non-nerds.
Yeah, I mean, basically, they can't go above a certain threshold. They are, I want to see how far they are from the first apron. They are like around 4.2 million away from the first apron. So they basically have 4 million to spend right now available. They're already 1.5 million over the tax, which that kind of signals that they're going to make another move, right? Because they're not going to be a tax team this year. We've talked about it too, JD, like not to save money, but they've been in the tax the last 2 years. You go on a tax for a 3rd straight year with a team that probably isn't a championship contender. The repeater tax comes into play, and those, that's even more punitive. So I've talked to people around the Heat. They're going to be out of the tax, and right now they're 1.5 over. So there's going to be another move here to shed some money to get them under that line. It doesn't have to happen right now. It could happen in February. The tax is calculated based on the roster at the end of the regular season, so they have some time to figure that out. But they will. I'm positive they will not be a tax team next year, unless obviously Giannis becomes available and some, whatever. I guess in that dream scenario, maybe you do it. But if this goes as planned, they're not going to be a tax team. So things to know about where they are on the salary cap. They're over the tax right now. They basically have $4 million to spend before they reach that hard cap where they can't spend anymore. But they're going to shed money. More than likely, that first apron is not going to be a problem because they're going to actually shed money to get under the tax before the end of the season.
So we're talking Wiggins, his salary, which is what, 26, 27 million?
Yeah, I think 26 around there.
Then you also have Rozier, but that's kind of a tough contract to trade. So we won't even talk about Terry Rozier at this point. If we're talking Wiggins, and I know there is a lot of rumors out there, let's not necessarily speak on specific players, but if you're in the Heat and you have a wish list and you are shedding Wiggins, what do you want back for Wiggins? Do you want picks? Do you want expiring contracts? Is there a specific position you want? What would you be looking for if you're the Heat?
Expiring contracts, and if you can, a pick, right? Definitely expiring contracts, because you don't want long-term money on the books right now. You want flexibility. If you can get a first-round pick out of it, a protected first-round pick, even better. If you're looking for a certain position, I think definitely center is something that the Heat roster needs right now, right? You trade Kevin Love. Basically, your centers are Khalil and Bam, and they might both start. So who's your backup center? I guess, you can stagger the minutes between Bam and Ware and make it work. But if one goes down, you're in a pickle, right? You have Vlad Golden on a two-way contract, undrafted rookie who's a center, but you're going to depend on him to play big minutes if one of those guys goes down. So they definitely need to bolster their front court a little bit. So I think, either a small ball center, but somebody who could play center for extended minutes, because you're going to need a third center on this roster. But in terms of expiring contracts and picks, yes, both. That's what you want. You want expiring contracts and picks. There's been reports about talks with the Lakers where the Heat are asking for a couple of expiring contracts, but they also want a pick. That's kind of where they are. They kind of have leverage right now because you get Norman Powell. Now that's a win now move. You don't have to trade Andrew Wiggins. Andrew Wiggins in a basketball fit with this roster makes this team better. He's a two-way guy. Now he's a fourth offensive option. You add Norman Powell. Not a bad fourth option to have, right? Andrew Wiggins, who was one of the better players during the Warriors NBA Finals run just a few years ago. So he could use Andrew Wiggins. But yeah, if you get a good deal for him, if a team really wants him and gives you expiring contracts and a good first-round pick, then you do the move. But they don't have to do it. And I think the Heat are, when they are engaging in trade talks for Andrew Wiggins, I think they're operating from a position of strength because of that.
And that's really been kind of a change of the norm for the past
Sure,
few weeks.
yeah.
Because everything else, it's like, look, we know you need to get rid of this. We know you need to get rid of someone like Jimmy. You can keep going all the way back. So they think they have you over a barrel. And as you can tell, the Godfather and company, they don't mind making a deal. So that should be interesting. It also makes you wonder, and we'll go right into this now. We're in the summer league about some of these young players. We see them. They started in California. Our first round pick, Caspers Jakuchonis, struggled from the field. If we want to talk a little bit about that. But Pelle Larsson, and look, no one's advocating for Pelle Larsson to start, to take the first round pick's minutes. But it has been a nice development that there's been growth from last year.
He probably will take his minutes this year, honestly, based on what we've seen so far. Yeah. It's been a rough start. I mean, it's only 3 summer league games, so you can't make too much of it. But obviously, this is not ideal for Caspers. I feel for him because I'm sure obviously you want to play well as a first-round pick, first few summer league games.
Let's remember, he's 19.
He's 19 years, and he just turned 19 in late May. So he's a freshly turned 19-year-old. He's a kid, still a teenager. He shot 1 of 15 from the field and missed all 11 three-point attempts during the California Classic. He had 12 turnovers to 6 assists. That is atrocious, obviously, right? And it's a 3-game sample. Shooting slumps happen. Maybe it's just a shooting slump. But it's important to note, his three-point shooting was not great at Illinois. He had turnover issues at Illinois. Those are 2 of the big red flags.
You can't look, a 2-to-1 ratio isn't great if you have 2-to-1 more assists than turnovers.
Right.
Now, we're talking a 1-to-2 ratio, and one of his calling cards, from what I remember,
was running the offense.
Hey, you can run the offense. He can read the pick and rolls. And I understand these are not the guys that you would play with every night in the NBA, but you still need to be able to recognize and not turn it over.
That's probably his biggest issue right now, his turnovers, because they were a big issue. He had one of the highest turnover rates last year in college. Turnovers have been, again, an issue early in summer league. Again, he's 19. On the positive note, defensively, he's been pretty good, probably better than many expected. Kind of, hustling, diving for balls, staying in front of guys, getting a few steals here and there. He's gotten to the line. I think he's drawn 12 free throw attempts in the first 3 games. That's how he's gotten 12. He scored a total of 12 points in the 3 games while making 1 field goal. He scored most of those points at the foul line. Yeah, right. So, there's been a couple, some bright spots, but for the most part, it's been pretty rough for him. One thing I'll point out is, and this was on the scouting report before the draft, I think it's one of the reasons he fell. He's 6'6", but because he's not this super athletic guy, kind of plays smaller than his size. I think he had 0 dunks in the half court in college.
Correct.
He has kind of struggled so far getting by guys off the dribble. He'd have kind of needed to get him on the move a little bit to get him space to get into the paint, different things like that. There is a reason why his, obviously some of it's just missing shots, but if you were looking for like a bigger point here of why he's 1 for 12, he's not generating the easiest shot looks for himself. And some of that is because he doesn't really get by his defender consistently. And that is a concern, right? That is a concern and because he's going to be facing much better defenders in the regular season. So again, I don't want to make too much of it. It's 3 summer league games. He can go for 40 points in Las Vegas tomorrow for all we know. But if you're for the people who want to overreact, I don't think it's crazy to say like I could see Caspers maybe playing in the G League for a few weeks here as a rookie. Again, he's 19, so that shouldn't be a surprise. 19-year-old who was picked 20th in draft, by the way. I know some had him pegged as a lottery pick, but he was picked 20th and he's 19. Those guys usually spend some time in the G League.
And look, Ware played in the G League, if I'm not mistaken,
right,
just for a little bit. Also, it's good to have a Pelle Larsson to give him time to grow. We know that the Heat has a track record of really working with its players, which gives a chance that, hey, we can work out a lot of these things. Some of this is going to be physical. My first thought was, and you'll be watching him in Vegas, is running the offense a little quick for him right now. The speed of the defenders, the speed of getting open. Getting open is an art, just like it is in football anywhere else. Making space is an art. You see guys who are slow of foot who can still find their spots and still be able to get to where they need to go. And hopefully it's a learning curve for him. Like we keep saying, kid's 19, but he's got a great staff and people who will work with him. I would say Goran Dragic wasn't exactly the fastest guy in the world, but he still got his spots. So here's hoping that for him.
And they're different players, but if you remember Nikola Jovic, it must have been, I guess, now like 3 years ago, I think.
And he's still 19. No, I'm kidding.
Or maybe 2 years ago. 2 or 3 years ago, he was bad in his first summer league. And he was 19 when he drafted him as well.
Right.
He was not good at all. And he didn't play much his rookie year. He spent a lot of it in the G League. He got injured. He had a back injury. Held him out for most of the season as well. But he got better. Obviously, he's gotten better, right? And sometimes it just takes time to find who you are in the NBA. Maybe he's not going to be the point guard in the NBA. Maybe he's more of a second side, like ball handler, playmaker type guy who stands in the corner and he could attack closeouts, and that's his role in the NBA. Maybe he's not going to be a lead guard. That's okay, but this is what this is for. It's a process, right? It's not going to just happen immediately. I think the people that are probably most disappointed are the ones that thought, we got this guy who wasn't. Some had him as the 7th best prospect in a really good draft. I could play point guard. We need a point guard. We need a guy who can pass well. And he doesn't look ready at all. Those are the people that are most disappointed. But you can't be surprised by that. Again, he's 19, and there's a reason why he fell to 20th. He's going to need some time to really get acclimated to the NBA, I think. But for all we know, again, like we said, he could be the best player in Las Vegas Summer League. And next week we're saying, should Caspers Jonas start for the Heat next season? So things change fast in Summer League, but so far it's been rough for the 19-year-olds.
Speaking of Summer League, we're going to get you out because you have to get over there soon.
Yes.
What are you looking for in Vegas? And who are you looking at in Vegas?
Yeah, obviously we're going to see how Caspers responds to a really rough start to Summer League. That's probably number one. Khalil Ware, a little bit underwhelming for his standards in California. He averaged like 13 points a game, and one of the 2 games he played in San Francisco, he had 3 rebounds. Like in Summer League, at this point, he was one of the best rookies in the NBA last season. He has to dominate, right? He has to look like a guy that you say, wow, he's too good for Summer League. We saw Jaime do it last year. It didn't lead to a great sophomore season, but we saw Jaime do it last year. He came in there, scored like 28 points on 10 shots, and was clearly on another level than everybody else. That's what you want to see from Khalil, not 12 points, 3 rebounds, 4-11 shooting. Like, that's just not good enough. So I think it'll be interesting to see how he responds to a kind of underwhelming showing at the California Classic. Pelle Larsson and Kashad have been good. Those two guys are kind of trying to prove they deserve for Pelle a more consistent role, and Kashad this time in the NBA, right? He spent most of his rookie season in the G League. But those are two guys that are expected to be on opening night roster. So those are two guys to watch for. And then it's just the other guys that, the Heat have 2 open two-way spots right now. Because Drew Smith hasn't sent his qualifying offer. Is anybody going to step up to take those, those two-way spots where the Heat, like Josh Christopher last year, right? He kind of lifted himself into that opportunity with a really good showing in Vegas. He got a two-way spot at the end of Summer League. Who's going to do that this year? Will there be a guy, right? Vlad Golden is already signed to a two-way. But who's going to be, somebody else that maybe earns that opportunity? So that's kind of, in general, what I'm looking for here over the next week and a half in Vegas.
Is there anything interesting about Vlad Golden? I know he was a former FAU Owl.
Yeah.
And he went to Michigan as well, right? Was it Michigan?
Yeah, he went to Michigan. Yeah, he actually started his career, I think, at Texas Tech. And then he went for 3 seasons at FAU. Spent his season, then followed Dusty May. Yeah, he was a starting center at FAU for the Final Four team, and then followed Dusty May to Michigan for his last college season. Russian, big man, 7'1", I think with a 7'4" wingspan, so he's large. And the Heat need size right now because they need center depth. But again, the question with him is he ready? Right, he was an older college player, 5 years in college, I believe. So he has some experience, but the NBA is a different level, and he's not the quickest guy. So how is he going to defend in space? There's always those questions, but he brings size, he brings experience, and if the Heat don't make a center addition here, they might need him next season.
Okay, well, those are the kinds of things we need to look for as we go throughout this Summer League season. Please stay locked in with us. You'll have Anthony out there. You'll have Barry, who seems to be everywhere all at once. And we will continue bringing you all the Heat stuff that you need to know as we're preparing for a very interesting season, because the Eastern Conference is so crazy right now. You can't even begin to predict what's going to happen. But I can predict that Pat Riley will not just sit here and just be content with the status quo. So keep your eyes open. Keep it locked in. Follow Anthony on Twitter. Follow us here on YouTube. And don't forget to like and subscribe here or go to MiamiHerald.com. For Anthony Chang, I'm John Devine. Until next time.
Off to 112-degree heat, JD. See you next week.
Stay cold.